day 464. So today was midweek fasting, or mid-fast, right? Day 5. I have 3 more days before I start eating. And I've already planned out what I'm going to eat and what I need to get from the grocery store, because that's the type of person I am. Also, when you're watching a ton of tasty videos, you're like, ooh, I can make this, and I can make this, and I can do this. And then you don't do any of it, and then you watch the video again 6 months later, and you're like, did I ever make this? Anywho, so other than watching some food porn, I got up, went on a hike. It basically was an option of 5.5 miles or 9 miles, and I ended up doing the shorter hike. It's an interesting feeling when you're in a full-on fast where I am, and like I'm purposefully working out and pushing myself during those periods. I mean, it's completely different when you're just sitting around the house and you're doing nothing, and by nothing I mean nothing physical, right? Or very light physical activity. It doesn't really matter because you can do them in a slow pace, but even when you're out hiking and walking, like I could have easily done the extra 3 miles. I mean, it would take me an hour to do it, but like I noticed about third mile in, getting to the fourth, I was on a fairly technical portion of the trail. And unfortunately, the rest of the 3 miles would have been at least half of it technical. I started tripping on stuff, and it's not necessarily anything that I've caused. It's just the exhaustion of trying to pull out the calories from fat. It only can do it so quickly, right? And so when you're out there, and you're moving, and you try to do a SoulCycle class, or you try to do any of those types of things where it's high aerobic, you can get to a point where you just don't have the energy, because unlike when you have food and it's using that food source as your energy source, when you have fat, there's only a certain level of fat that it can burn at a time. And so certainly I could have pushed it and done the extra 3 miles. I could have taken more breaks. That's kind of what stopped me from moving forward, and doing a further hike. I was on the trail and I'd already stopped once, and then I wanted to stop again before the intersection to choose. And that was only about 1.5 miles after the last stop. So that, I mean, usually I can do these, when I'm eating, I can do, 10 miles with 2 stops. So to only be, on mile 3 having to do a stop, and then mile 4 having to do a stop is a sign. It might be the weather, although, we've got perfect weather right now. It's, 60s to 70s in the morning, high of 80s. I mean, I was able to go out and do a little gardening work this evening. So yeah, so like you just kind of have to decide at the time which works for you. And in this case, right, like I could have pushed myself to do the extra 3 miles. I chose not to. But I think I'm at a good place, weight loss wise. So I didn't want to make it, where I tripped and I fell and I ended up cutting myself or something like that, right? So I ended up heading back to the car, and, I did my 5.5 miles. Got a little elevation in. So yeah, not as much as I wanted to do today, but definitely more than most people would do on 5 days of no food.